When delivering value in agility, we are to break down the scope of what is to be delivered into smaller chunks, each of which can be delivered to customers to provide value. The question is how to break down that value, and it is one of the hardest things for many aspiring agilists to learn. So how does one split up scope? Three options present themselves. Option 1, build one component at a time, like the front end or the database. Option 2, build one feature at a time. Option 3, build one workflow at a time. First, let's use a software example. Let's say a banking application. We start with the front end, then security policies, the business logic, and finally the database. Let's call this the engineer's angle of vision, or horizontal splitting. There's several downsides with horizontal splitting. First, it does not allow for delivering value to customers until all is done. After all, the customers can't do anything with the front end until it's fully hooked up to the database. Secondly, we have to ask ourselves where the greatest complexity lies. Usually, building one single layer, like the front end, does not have a lot of complexity. The greater complexity usually lies with integrating the components together. Complexity means unknown unknowns, so we want to discover those as soon as possible, so not by building the entire front end first. In other words, it is when we create some functionality that touches on every component of the system, like logging in. This requires a full round trip from the front end to the database and back again. These vertical slices could also be called the user's angle of vision, because the user gets a fully integrated feature they can appreciate. Once all features are built, we're done. Though we are now tackling complexity better, and we can even get feedback on individual features from stakeholders earlier, we still have a problem. Users cannot truly use the system until it's all built. So the real thrill is a hunt for value. Some set of very thin slices of functionality that allow the customer to do something they care about, even if ever so small. In this case, a simple combination of log in, check account balance, log out is the first simple workflow. The user still has to call in by phone to do all the other functions, like transfer funds, but having the first workflow done, we are now able to do a number of important things, like validate that we can do it, front to back, and that we can integrate it. Discover unknown unknowns in building or deploying the application, like challenges setting up security protocols we didn't think of. Now we can show it to stakeholders, like sales and marketing, to get feedback. We don't have to give it to actual users, but if we would, it would be good, because then we can get some real feedback from real users that really use the system. A second workflow adds another thing the user can do, like making a transfer. A third adds account-to-account transfers, and little by little, the entire product gets built. Each step, though, is appreciable by the user, and from their angle of view. They don't care about databases. They do care about things they can do that they couldn't do before, like checking their account balance. Now on to a non-software example, a true story actually. Imagine you have to move an office. 5 departments, including reception, spread over 3 floors. You have a few choices on how to sequence the move. The first option is to draw up all the architectural plans, then do construction, assemble the furniture, install computers, and finally to move people. Everything goes well, all gets installed, until once people have moved, complaints start rolling in. The dishwasher on all 3 floors can't be opened at the same time as the fridge. The garbage is too far away for half of the office, as they have to go through 3 locked doors to get to it. Worst of all, the 300 new monitor arms you bought are useless because they keep banging against the glass dividers, eventually breaking them. They cost $500 each, so roughly $150,000. Though, after about 50 hours of negotiations and yelling on the phone, you were able to work out a deal and have different ones installed, for a cost of only $50,000. Luckily, we have an alternative for you. Since a move has many complexities involved, with unknown unknowns like monitor arms and dishwashers, we suggest you deliver a thin, vertical slice that cuts through the entire stack of tasks. Really move the sales department. After a few weeks, most, if not all, the unknown unknowns are discovered, allowing you to learn using a short feedback loop and the low cost of failure. Want to learn even faster? Use prototypes, or build one of the floors and move just yourself and try the new office. Once the complexities are worked out and the unknown unknowns discovered, go ahead and build the rest of the floor at scale. You now have removed most of the complexities, and it's more of a complicated problem. Now, often people who are not used to this are initially uncomfortable with the approach. It feels inefficient to build products little bits at a time. It feels that work could be done much more quickly by building components one after the other. And in some ways, it's true. Building products, components at a time, theoretically benefits from economies of scale. The cost of building one vertical slice at a time is initially higher. It is the price to pay for the mitigation of risks, the early feedback, the flexibility and adaptability, and the early tackling of complexity. However, quite often that loss in efficiency pays itself back multiple times over, because when we do have to adapt as we go, and we didn't build in flexibility to adapt, or we discover it too late, we pay many times more to course correct. Let's use another analogy, that of an iceberg. Think of the tip of the iceberg as the feature, the user appreciable value. Below the waterline are the things we have to do to build that feature, like database changes. Quite possibly, especially at the beginning of the development of a product, the part below the waterline is substantially bigger than the part above the waterline. Sometimes the value part is so small that it is barely visible. The important thing is that we do exactly as much as is necessary below the waterline to deliver the value above the waterline, but no more. This is the just-in-time principle and protects us from going back to a waterfall approach where we build in a silo for extended periods of time before any value is delivered, like a sinking iceberg. If we want to deliver something sooner, it is important not to split the iceberg horizontally to make it smaller, as it would not lead to fully integrated product or value sooner. Instead, split off a smaller piece of value. Then, do as much as is necessary for it to be delivered. Make the value as small as necessary to be able to deliver that sliver in the time frame you are looking for. Remember that there's always more that you can do, but follow the just-in-time principle. Do only as much as absolutely necessary to deliver that value to the user. Don't do unnecessary work for delivering future value now. Do it when you deliver that value. Because when things change a lot, you don't know if you'll ever be creating that future value. This gives you flexibility to change and adapt, and neither have to do more work to deliver that part of the customer value, nor have below the waterline work that has not yet turned into value and that has to be thrown out. In a way, it's a pull system, like we know from Lean. The value pulls only what is needed to deliver it, no more. Also, don't do less than you need to do, but exactly as much as you need to do to deliver this value. Enough means that the value can be used by the user for the foreseeable future without further investment. It is considered done. Like definition of done, which actually brings us to an important point. Think of quality as having two sides, robustness and features. A feature is considered done when it is robust enough to do the job for customers. And though in Agile we do things in increments, Agile is not about delivering shoddy quality to users and then say we'll fix it later. That's a common misconception. Instead, if we cannot do a feature properly in the given time frame, make that feature smaller, but still deliver a robust product. Otherwise, you'll end up with what is called technical debt. Work you should have done, but because you postponed it, you have to do it later at a higher cost. As is the case with debt, the longer you wait, the more interest you pay.